Hi there, I'm Mora. My mom kicked me out of the apartment I paid for, just to make space for my sister and her jobless husband. They smiled while boxing up my life, and I was left asking myself, how did I become the outsider in my own home? But the worst part wasn't losing a roof. It was realizing I was never really family to them. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have they ever chosen someone else and made you pay for it? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, I'd really love to know. I pushed the front door open with my hip, grocery bags swaying against my thighs. The lock was undone. Again. My fingers tensed around the handles as I stepped inside, heart already sinking. The scent of microwave popcorn and rose potpourri clashed in the air. Mora, you're home, we need to talk. My mother's voice was calm. Too calm. I turned the corner into the living room. Colleen sat with her legs crossed, a legal pad on her lap, her pen still uncapped as if she had been rehearsing. Taryn and Brad will be moving in next week, she said, eyes never lifting from the page. It's time you started living your own life. No explanation, no request, just a declaration. Like I was a tenant, and my lease had silently expired. I stood there frozen, grocery bags still in hand, milk warming, bread squishing. My mouth opened, but my throat rebelled. Excuse me? You've been here long enough, she replied. They need the space. And you're 31, Mora. You should be building something of your own. I had been. Quietly, steadily, for them. I paid the rent. I covered her medications when insurance dropped her. I fixed the faucet, even when Brad, useless Brad, was supposed to be the one handy with tools. I didn't speak. I just nodded once, because I knew if I started, I wouldn't stop. Taryn walked in with a flourish, like she'd been waiting for her cue. Oh, Mora, she said, already slipping her arms around Mom. We'll only be here for a while. Brad followed, loafers loud against the wood floor. He gave me a half smile, smug, possessive. His arm curled around my mother's shoulder like he had just bought the place. I stared at the three of them. They looked like a family portrait I didn't belong in. We'll need the master, Taryn said brightly. Mom said you'd be fine taking the smaller room downstairs. For now. I blinked. What? You don't really use it much, she added, her voice dipped in mock reason. And Brad's back is terrible. You're not even paying rent, I said. My mother waved her hand dismissively. You'll manage. It's not forever. No one saw me clench my fist under the grocery bag. No one noticed the knot in my throat or the sting crawling up my chest. I turned on my heel and walked to my room. Each step scraped. Inside, I set the groceries on the bed. I didn't unpack them. I pulled out a weekend duffel, tossed in clothes like I was folding up parts of myself. The silence in the room swallowed every breath I had left. They already chose her. They didn't even ask me to understand. They just expected me to comply, like a relic being moved to storage. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the picture frame on my nightstand, me and Dad at a Rockies game when I was 16. He had his hand on my shoulder, beaming like I'd just hit a home run. The last time Mom held my hand was at his funeral, brief, cold, for appearance. Downstairs, the scent of garlic bread wafted from the kitchen. Laughter drifted up the stairwell like smoke. I walked down, face neutral. Taryn glanced up from her phone. What are you cooking, Mora? Brad added with a smirk. Make extra. I skipped lunch. I said nothing. Boiled water, boiled inside. They passed plates like I wasn't there. Mom talked about redecorating. Taryn chimed in about Brad's back needing a firmer mattress. I bit into dry spaghetti. Tasted nothing. Later, I stood in the hallway. The lights flickered as they always did, unrepaired. This was my apartment. My name on every bill, my sweat in every repair. They think I'll just leave quietly. I will leave, but not quietly. The list was folded neatly, like a menu. Taryn slid it across the table while I was stirring my coffee. The word inventory stared back at me in bold, all caps. What's this? Just a little organization, she said, biting into her toast. We thought it would be helpful, dividing things fairly. For when you move. My fingers tightened. I unfolded it. Antique chest, Taryn dad's watch, Taryn leather armchair, Brad espresso machine, Brad dining set, shared, but open to discussion. They had itemized my life. Like I was a shadow they were dusting off, like I had already vanished. You're dividing things like I've already left, I said, my voice low. Colleen, who hadn't looked up from her grapefruit, offered a bland smile. It's just a list, Maura. Number it's not. Taryn leaned forward. You know Dad would have wanted me to have the chest. It was always in my room growing up. Brad chimed in, half laughing. And let's be real, you hate that lamp anyway. I blinked at him. You think that makes it okay? He raised his mug. It's just stuff. No one asked how I felt. No one noticed my hands were trembling on the page. They were too busy planning the funeral for my presence. That evening, the apartment looked different, subtly rearranged, like the walls were leaning away from me. The books I had lined along the living room shelves, gone, replaced with knickknacks that screamed Taryn. My grandmother's lace runner was folded and stuffed in a drawer. The guest towels were no longer mine. Fluffy new ones monogrammed with B&T took their place. Where's my framed photo? I asked aloud, scanning the wall. Taryn, from the couch. Oh, we boxed it. Thought you'd want your things together. You said you'd be out soon, right? My jaw tensed. I never said that. She looked over the rim of her wine glass. Well, it's kind of implied. The next blow came from my phone. A message from Carla, a friend I hadn't seen in months. Is this your espresso machine? Found it on Facebook Marketplace? Attached was a screenshot. It was mine. Stainless steel, sleek, barely used, listed under Brad's number. I stood, walked into the kitchen. My blender was gone. Brad, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Where's my blender? He glanced up from his phone. We're trying to clear some space. And let's be honest, you barely use it. I use it every morning. Well, it's going to help Mom now. Colleen appeared in the hallway. Can we not fight over kitchen gadgets? Honestly, Maura, you're being dramatic. Dramatic. Like my life was a soap opera they were tired of watching, I snapped. You've taken my room, my things, and now you're selling my property. What's next, my name? Taryn groaned. You always do this, make everything about you. Because it is about me, I hissed. This is my apartment. I paid for every damn inch of this place. Colleen stepped forward. Don't make a scene, Maura. You're embarrassing yourself. That broke something, not just in me, but off of me, like a cracked mask sliding to the floor. Fine, I said. You want me gone? Watch how fast I disappear, but don't think for a second you're walking away clean. I turned and left the room, but I didn't leave the house. Not yet. Instead, I sat in my bedroom, pulled out my laptop, and started taking screenshots, sale posts, text threads, photos of the missing items. I opened a voice memo app and hit record. From that moment forward, every word in that apartment would be stored, just in case. Before going to sleep, I locked my door, first time since I moved in. I stared at it, at the chipped paint, the weak frame, at everything I once believed was mine. I didn't just lose trust, I lost whatever illusion I had of being their equal. And the next thing they tried to take wasn't mine. It was me. Rain was slapping against the kitchen window when the email came in. Unusual activity detected on your account, the subject line read. I clicked before finishing my tea. The bank had flagged a new checking account opened in my name, with a phone number that wasn't mine. I dialed the number. My stomach twisted when Brad's voice answered. Yo? I hung up. Brad. It had to be him. I stormed into the living room. He was lounging on the couch like nothing had happened, feet up, chewing through a bag of chips. You used my name to open a bank account? He blinked. Relax. It's just to hold the cash we're moving around. Temporary. You stole my identity, he shrugged. It's not like we're strangers. We're family. My hands curled into fists. You're selling my things under my name. That's criminal. Colleen's voice drifted in from the kitchen. Maura, honey, You're blowing this out of proportion. Taryn appeared from behind her bedroom door. Why are you always playing the victim? God, it's exhausting. There it was, again. The way they turned my boundaries into burdens. The way every violation became my fault for reacting. I didn't answer. I walked back to my room, closed the door quietly, and sat in the dark. Then I picked up my phone and recorded a voice memo. March 3rd. Identity fraud. Confirmed Brad used my SSN. Evidence linked to marketplace sales. I forwarded it to Helen, an old college friend who now worked in real estate law. The subject line, URGENT. I wasn't going to scream anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to build a case. By midnight, I was deep in Denver tenant law forms and lease contract templates. The apartment lease was still in my name. I knew that. I had the welcome packet still saved, but something told me, check again. 3 days later, it was a Friday night. Rain again. Cold and persistent. My phone pinged. Maura, your lease agreement has been updated, the message read. I blinked at it. My chest started to thud. I logged into the building's tenant portal. My name was gone. I called the office immediately. A girl named Rachel answered. Oh, hey. Yeah, we processed the lease transfer last week. You and your sister brought it in together? What? Wait, this wasn't you? My pulse went still. Email me the file, right now. When it came through, I opened it on my laptop. The signature was mine. At least, it tried to be. Crooked, off-centered, like a child copying cursive. They forged my name. I printed the document, hands trembling with fury. Walked into the living room, slapped it on the coffee table in front of them like I was presenting a body. Want to explain this? Taryn didn't even flinch. That? It must be a clerical mix-up. Brad chuckled. Maybe the printer glitched your name into the form? Colleen sipped her tea. Maybe it's a sign from the universe, Maura. Maybe it's time to let go. I stared at them. Not one of them had the decency to lie well. You forged my name, I said, each word slow. That's not just desperation, that's a crime. Taryn rolled her eyes. You've always been so dramatic. Everything is life or death with you. No, I said. Just identity theft. Real casual. I grabbed the paper, held it up, and pointed to the signature. This is the last time you'll underestimate me. I left them in silence and slammed my door. That night, I drafted 2 emails, one to the leasing office, one to Helen, and I started packing, not because I was afraid, but because I was done playing defense. I was done being nice. They hadn't just violated my space, they'd come for my name, and that was their biggest mistake yet. The morning felt colder than it should have. Not the kind that seeps into your skin, but one that slips into your chest and makes you hollow. I put on my coat, locked my bedroom door, and left for work without a word to anyone. At the office, I buried myself in spreadsheets, noise-canceling headphones on full volume, pretending that formulas could fix a family. Around lunchtime, a receptionist dropped a letter on my desk. Forwarded mail. The return address made my stomach flip. Property management office. I tore it open right there. It was a notice to vacate. 7 days. No explanation, no apology. Just a sterile directive to be out of the apartment I was still legally paying for. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. Colleagues turned to look, but I didn't care. My phone was already ringing the property manager before I made it to the stairwell. A hesitant voice answered. Ma'am, we received supplemental documents last week. From Taryn Winslow? She's not the tenant. I am. Well, according to the documents we have, the lease was transferred. Forged. It was forged. The line went quiet. I hung up and leaned against the concrete wall of the stairwell, my breath catching in short bursts. My knees were unsteady. I slid down to the steps and stared at the letter again. They were erasing me. Not just out of the apartment, out of the narrative. By the time I got home, my hands were steady again. I didn't cry. I scanned the letter, circled every clause, then printed my original lease agreement from cloud storage. The timestamp alone would challenge their lie. I laid out documents across my bed like a war map. They wanted to play games. I was done being polite. I filmed Brad walking into my room without knocking. I saved a copy of every Facebook Marketplace post linked to him. I voice recorded their conversations on my phone, edited for clarity, and backed them up in 2 drives. This wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. The social damage spread faster than I'd anticipated. 2 friends unfollowed me on Instagram. One coworker, Mia, someone I once trusted with my heartbreaks, pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Are you okay? Someone said you're being kicked out because you weren't paying rent." I looked at her. I didn't have the energy to explain. "It's more complicated than that," I said. She nodded, but the way she avoided my eyes told me everything. Rumors were faster than facts. In the silence of my room that night, I watched the rain hit the window in streaks. The apartment wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage set, one where I was the villain in their story, the tragic act to be pushed out before intermission. I thought of my father's voice, calm, principled. "If they lie about who you are, prove them wrong without ever lowering yourself." But he never had to live with a Brad. The next evening, I stood outside the leasing office, holding a sealed envelope. Inside was everything: proof, dates, digital logs. Enough to unravel the story they'd spun. I stared at the door. I didn't knock. I turned and walked to the car parked across the street. Helen rolled down the window without saying a word. I climbed in. Tomorrow, we'd file the first cease and desist. They pushed me out of my home. Now I was pushing back. The cold had started to bite harder in Denver, but it wasn't the wind that made my hands shake that morning. It was the weight of the past collapsing in my lap. I had been digging through a storage bin in my closet, looking for my birth certificate for the court filing. Instead, I found a yellowed envelope marked in my father's handwriting. Will. It was sealed, fragile. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside, a faded photo of me and him fishing at Echo Lake. Behind it, a blank notepad. No will, no instructions, just silence. So that was it. No inheritance, no trust. Just another lie dressed in nostalgia. Taryn's story about Dad leaving her the antique chest, Brad's talk of his share, all of it crumbled. They were dividing spoils from a treasure that never existed, and they'd convinced everyone it was mine they were entitled to. The next envelope I received wasn't hidden in a box. It came via certified mail. A supposed legal notice from a firm in Lakewood representing Brad. It demanded I release my hold on the remaining assets of the Winslow estate. There was no case number, no lawyer's name. It wasn't even signed. I called the county records office. A kind woman named Gloria answered. "There's no estate in probate," she said. "Your father passed with no will on file." I thanked her and sat there, stunned. The lie wasn't just in their actions. It was institutional now. They were drafting entire legal fantasies and mailing them like facts. That night, my phone buzzed while I was microwaving soup. It was a text from my cousin Claire. "Hey, are you really trying to take everything? You should see what Taryn just posted." My stomach turned cold. I opened Facebook. The post was a photo from Dad's funeral, me with tears in my eyes, clinging to the side of his casket. Her caption read, "She cried for money, not for him." Comments exploded underneath. Dozens. "We always knew she had issues." "She was never close to him anyway." "Must be nice to grieve with dollar signs in your eyes." Old friends liked the post. Some shared it. My inbox filled within the hour. Former colleagues, neighbors, even a message from my high school principal. "Maura, I hope this isn't true. Your father was a good man." I read that one twice, then deleted it. One lie, posted at 8:14 p.m., had burned through 31 years of dignity. My timeline became a smear campaign. They weren't just kicking me out of the apartment anymore. They were evicting me from my own history. But this time, I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and began documenting the post, the comments, the reach. I saved every screenshot. This wasn't a family disagreement. It was public defamation. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in nearly 5 years. "Hello?" A man's voice answered, cautious. Are you still working at the legal firm in Boulder? A long pause. Yeah. Mora? I didn't waste time. Because I need someone who doesn't blink at family blood. For the first time in days, I heard my own voice steady and sharp. They wanted to gut me with gossip. I'd slice back with statutes. The next morning, I filed the draft for a defamation suit. The grocery store felt unusually bright that afternoon. Fluorescent lights humming like insects, carts clattering over tile. I just needed oat milk and toothpaste, but every aisle I turned down greeted me with half smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. By the frozen food section, I heard it. A woman's voice behind me, barely hushed. She doesn't look pregnant at all. My stomach dropped. I opened my phone. Notifications were lighting up. A screenshot had been forwarded to me from 3 different numbers. A group chat thread titled Family Stuff. One bubble read, Mora's expecting? Who's the father? Another added a nauseating emoji. I stared at it, frozen. My hands started to sweat. The idea wasn't just false. It was poison, tailored to twist everything I'd worked to protect. My credibility, my body, my choices. At dinner that night with a colleague from my firm, I tried to shake it off, but his eyes kept darting to my waist, then back to his glass. Are you okay raising a child alone? He asked gently, stabbing a piece of grilled salmon. Just wondering what kind of support you have. I pushed my plate away. I'm not pregnant. I'm not even dating. The words stung coming out, like I was apologizing for something I never did. I'd endured theft, identity fraud, character assassination, but this was different. This was an assault on the most intimate part of me, my body, my future, my name, and the tone. It had Taryn written all over it. She'd always weaponized my silence, my need to keep things private. This was her masterpiece, something that looked too intimate to question and too personal to refute without looking unstable. Later that evening, an old friend from college called. Hey, she said too cheerfully. I saw something online. Just wanted to say congrats? I let the silence sit for a few seconds. Then my voice cracked, not from tears, just fury held too long. It's not true. Someone's playing a game, I said, swallowing hard. And I'm done playing. I unblocked Taryn. My hands didn't shake this time. I typed, touch my life again, and I'll burn yours down publicly. She didn't reply. She wouldn't. She always preferred damage from a distance. I spent the next 3 hours erasing myself. I stripped down every profile, Facebook, Instagram, even my LinkedIn, changed privacy settings, rewrote my bios, deleted photos. I reported 3 fake accounts that had been tagging me in vague status updates. Then I packed a box and labeled it with a Sharpie, Mom, final visit. Inside, I placed every item she'd ever given me. Birthday cards, a framed cross-stitch from when I graduated college, a broken teacup she once swore had sentimental value. Narration ran in my head like a closing monologue. They called it family. I called it a curse stitched in my DNA. Just before midnight, as I curled into bed, my phone buzzed again. A voice memo. Brad's voice, oily and calm. You think this is over? You're lucky we haven't gone to HR at your firm. Imagine if your bosses heard about all the stuff you've been saying. I didn't reply. I saved the file. Then I stared into the dark, letting the silence stretch like smoke through my room. They weren't trying to hurt me anymore. They were trying to erase me. And if they thought I'd let them, they hadn't been paying attention. The next morning, I booked an appointment with my firm's internal legal team. I woke up to the hum of a heater and the soft rattle of wind against the windows. My new apartment smelled of fresh paint and stale hope. I brewed coffee, trying to fake a sense of normal, when I caught a flicker of something odd behind the bathroom mirror, wires where there shouldn't be. I leaned in, moved the mirror slightly. A lens blinked back. I didn't scream. I didn't even gasp. I froze, because this wasn't paranoia anymore. This was calculated, intentional, war. I ripped the mirror off the wall. The camera was small, maybe the size of a coin, taped behind the frame with electrician's tape. I traced the cord and followed it to a wall plate Brad had offered to fix weeks ago. The memory hit me like ice. Him fumbling with wires, cracking a joke about how these things always come loose in new builds. There were hours of footage logged. Me sleeping, changing clothes, crying, sitting in the tub staring at nothing. They hadn't just stolen my family. They'd broken into the last place I had left, my body, my solitude. I called a private security firm, then the police. I wrapped the device in gloves and sealed it in a freezer bag. But before they arrived, my phone lit up like a dying flare. Dozens of text messages, cousins, aunts, even my godmother in Santa Fe. I opened one, a video, me, half-dressed, stretching in the morning light. The caption underneath? Guess who's too good for family now? I bent over the kitchen sink and vomited. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a cruel joke. It was punishment. A public unmasking designed to humiliate me until I broke. I didn't break. I blocked everyone. Every relative. Every friend connected to my mother's side. But I saved the messages, screenshotted them, logged timestamps. I added the clip to my case file folder, one labeled criminal. I emailed my lawyer. Then I sat down to draft a cease and desist so sharp it might as well have been a blade. I attached the video of the camera, the texts, the name of the chat. I sent 3 copies. To my mother, to Taryn, and to Brad. The subject line, federal felony, unlawful surveillance and distribution. Inside, just one line before the attachments. You just broke the wrong law. Let's see if your reputations survive the truth. Then I opened my public Instagram, newly scrubbed, tightly curated, and posted a simple text graphic. If you think blood gives you the right to destroy someone, you've never seen me fight back. I muted the comments, then shut the app. That night, as I curled up in bed, a knock echoed through the hallway. I didn't answer. A few seconds later, I heard something slide under the door. An envelope, no return address. Inside was a plain card, no name, just one printed sentence. You thought we were done? Below it, a typed line in bold. Let's see what your firm thinks when they get the video next. I stood for a long time, letting the weight of it settle. Then I lit a candle and watched the flame bend. They wanted to shame me into silence. I was done whispering. Then I burn everything. Taryn showed up at my office uninvited. No appointment, no warning. Just tears, smeared mascara, and a shaky voice. She's sick, Maura. Terminal. She's asking for you. I looked at her face, hollow, exhausted, maybe even honest. For one fragile second, I wanted to believe it. To believe that my mother, despite everything, still wanted me, needed me. So I said I'd come, once. Their house hadn't changed. Same lace curtains, same chipped welcome mat. But when I stepped inside, I didn't find an oxygen machine or quiet hospice care. I found Chinese takeout, 2 wine glasses, a half-finished bottle of red, laughter from the kitchen. My mother walked out in a silk robe and full makeup, startled by my presence. "Oh, you actually came," she said flatly. I turned to Taryn. She was lounging on the couch, phone in hand, not even pretending. "So, this was your chemo?" I asked. Taryn shrugged. She didn't want to die alone. What's so wrong with that? There wasn't a scream in me, just silence. I walked out without a word, the weight of that lie folding into every betrayal before it. That night, I called the clinic she claimed was treating her. Dr. Shaw answered, an old friend of Dad's. I asked about her diagnosis. "There is no diagnosis," he said. "Your mother came in for a routine wellness check. Stress, maybe, nothing serious." I recorded the call. Every word. 3 days passed. Just enough time for me to hope they'd crawl back into the hole they'd dug. But instead I received an email. Taryn, again. Polished, professional tone. Subject line, support request. $15,000, she wrote, for Mom to relocate somewhere peaceful where she can focus on recovery. Attached were voice notes, guilt-laced with just enough sugar to rot bone. "You're her only child now, Maura. Don't abandon her again. We'll pursue legal rights if needed." Legal rights. from the woman who faked cancer and the sister who violated every concept of family. I didn't respond by email. I drafted a notarized letter revoking all financial ties and obligations. Attached evidence of fraud, manipulation, the doctor's statement, and the surveillance case already building against them. My message was simple. You don't get to fake a funeral and then send me the bill. On Saturday, I drove to their home. Quiet street, frozen yard. I left the envelope on the doorstep and rang the bell once. I didn't wait for the door to open. Inside the envelope was everything. Copies of the lease proving my ownership, screenshots of the scams, and a copy of the voicemail where Taryn admitted she just didn't want to die alone. And the final line of my letter: this apartment was never yours to fight over. It was mine the moment I stopped fighting for your love. As I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. Court alert, a civil suit had been filed. In my name. Claim, emotional damages from estrangement. I stared at the screen and felt nothing. They wanted to play this in court? Then I'd bring the whole history with me. Game on. The envelope was thick, heavier than it looked. My name typed in bold letters, impersonal and cold. Defendant. They'd really done it. Filed a lawsuit against me for failure to perform family financial duties. The gall, the irony, the cruelty. I sat motionless for a minute, then let out a dry, humorless laugh. They hadn't wanted me in their lives, just in their ledger. At my lawyer's office, the tone was calm, but firm. They know this won't hold. They're not after justice. They're trying to drain you, mentally, financially, emotionally. I nodded. Then let's not fight it with fire. Let's fight it with paper. We filed the counterclaim: harassment, fraud, emotional abuse. I handed over everything: copies of the fake will demands, the forged lease, Brad's Craigslist scam, the hidden camera, even the voicemail from my mother faking illness. The motion we filed read like a eulogy: all obligations nullified due to malicious deception. I walked out of that office into the crisp air, feeling something unfamiliar. Not victory, not relief, just release. Later that week, I returned to the old apartment for the final time. The place was sterile, stripped of emotion, of memories. My pictures were gone. The echo of arguments replaced by silence. I stood in the doorway for a while, watching dust dance in the cold light. Then I taped a note inside the cupboard. Small, simple, private. Freedom tastes better than inheritance. And I locked the door one last time. A few days passed. Then my lawyer called. They've dropped the lawsuit. I thanked her and hung up without asking why. It didn't matter. The war was over. That evening, I received one last voicemail from Taryn. You were never part of this family to begin with. I listened once. Just once. Then deleted it. She was wrong. I was a part of that family, but I wasn't theirs anymore, and that difference mattered. The following Sunday, I walked through Central Park. Leaves clung to the last colors of fall. Families passed by with coffee and dogs, laughter in the wind. I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry, I was whole. They had fought over bricks and paint and lies, but I had fought for something else, for the right to exist without their permission. I looked up at the skyline peeking through the trees and let out a slow breath. Peace wasn't a destination. It was a daily decision. But sometimes, the past doesn't close the door quietly. Sometimes, survival means walking away from the people who taught you how to stay. I used to believe family was everything, until mine taught me what betrayal really looked like. If you've ever been made to feel like your worth is transactional, let me be the voice that tells you, you're allowed to choose peace over blood. You're allowed to protect your mind, your dignity, and your future, even if it means shutting a door that never truly opened for you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose yourself over someone you once loved? What did it cost you, and what did it set free? If this story touched your heart, comment 1 or tell me what city you're watching from. If it didn't resonate with you, I'd still love to hear why and where you are on your own journey. And if you're still here, don't forget to subscribe. Because the next story, it might just be yours.